My friends, let's break down, tear apart, and examine the footage and the camera of the Nikon ZR. You guys sent in tons of questions about this based on my latest film, Labor and Love, which I shot exclusively on the Nikon ZR. We're going to talk about that and break it all down, get into your tech questions and some storytelling. And I feel like right now you've seen the hype around the camera. And to be honest, there's a lot of clickbait titles out there, people saying that I'll never buy one. And then you watch the video and they say, yeah, I'll actually probably buy one. So I want to get through the fluff and just talk about it, what this camera can and can't do and my experiences. And one quick note, a lot of people get nervous that when they buy one camera that they've made a mistake because suddenly there's 3 more that have been released, or other people say that their camera brand is way better. It's about story. You know, you've heard me say this before, but the main thing you should care about every time you pick up your camera is, do you have a character and do we know what they want? But that's on storytelling. Let's break down this camera, the Nikon ZR. This video is sponsored by Logitech. I'll be using their devices, and more on that later. They have some really cool new features on the MX series that they've just released. So what lenses did I use? That is the most frequent question. Everyone has been asking me that one. Everyone. I'm talking the mailman, your mom. She's asking me what lenses did I shoot on. I used the Cooke SP3 lenses here. Now, these are very expensive lenses. They're kind of more of a lens that I would expect people to want to rent than purchase. You know, a set of them, the 6 I have, I think cost somewhere over $20,000. It's expensive, but still to me, the Cooke look, what you get out of these lenses is it's elevated. I have these on loan right now, so I'm shooting with them as much as I can. And I found the experience of putting the Viltrox adapter from the Nikon mount to the E-mount seamless. Didn't have any issues. Even the lens cap sounds expensive. Great video. Did you apply any noise reduction? No, I did not. Let's zoom in onto some footage here. What I'll do is let's grab this here. Look at, there's just like, oh, it looks like I kind of hit my focus and then I lost it. I'll actually go back to that. Man, look at that. That is sharp. That's at 495 or whatever, and we're zoomed all the way out here. That is very sharp when you actually think about how far we're zoomed in here. You just see that there's not much noise. The footage isn't talking much. Oh, there we go. Now I'm getting a bit better back in focus. The images that I shot with this, especially when I would reduce the ISO into the kind of the lower brackets, there's like a 800 and then you can go like low 0.7, low 0.3 and just keep going back. It was just clean. It was very clean. I never had to boost up higher to any of the higher ones. Yeah, that is clean. Come on. You got to admit. Getting a little bit of noise here. You can see the patterning, the moire. You kind of begin to see a bit of that discoloration. So yeah, there is definitely some at this level. But again, I'm zoomed way in. If we just look at it as an full screen image here, it's very, very clean. And most of that noise will go away when we add back on just that look. Beautiful. This question was asked, I would like to know, what do you think about the dynamic range of the ZR? Well, to be honest, I may have overstated it a bit in my first video. If you haven't seen that pseudo-technical analysis of the camera. The ZR is on par with the FX3 from what I understand now in the literature. When I was using it on set, I was feeling, just my feel as a cinematographer was that I was getting more dynamic range. You know, a lot of scenarios, I was able to recover the highlights. It never felt like I was fighting the clouds, which I sometimes feel I am on my FX3. But in the end, they're very similar, especially if you're shooting ProRes like I was. Now, the ProRes RAW, I've only got one shot in there, and this is it here. From what I've read, it doesn't have any extra dynamic range. I haven't done tests. I won't do tests. I'll leave that to guys like Gerald. But you can see here in Premiere, I can pull back a lot of this and recover some of those highlights. If we're coming back here to 0, I couldn't recover this window. That's just too much of a range here. What's really funny to me is a lot of people complain about the data size on the R3D files. You have to understand, Nikon bought a professional cinema camera. Usually, if you're on these sets shooting commercials, data is not the concern. Shooting 1 terabyte for 30 minutes is kind of the average of what you're going through with these heavier, more robust, higher bit rate codecs. So when people are complaining and they're flabbergasted that, wow, we're only getting roughly half an hour per terabyte with the red, that's what you get. But then you get the full raw red capabilities and you're getting that 15 stops or more of dynamic range. So that's the trade-off. At some point, there's a push and a pull. Now, you may have noticed this little feature that keeps appearing here in my Adobe Premiere. What is this? Well, this is a feature that's part of the Logitech MX series. I'm right now using the new MX Master4 mouse, and this has a few new features that actually really help with editing. One of them is the haptic feedback. This will actually buzz, kind of like your iPhone, you know, when you're scrolling things and there's that little tap, that little bit of a buzz vibration while you're doing certain settings. My favorite feature on the MX Master4 is the action ring. I can click this and it brings up this little HUD here, and I've actually customized it so that, especially for this video, I wanted the hand tool so I could drag around. I can zoom in here on this. So I'm zooming in right now with the scroll wheel, and then I've grabbed my hand and I can click around and drag here, and then without having to come all the way back down here to the toolbar or even touch my keyboard, I can click on the other action item here. And so it's just allowed me to begin editing more intuitively. I'm away from all the hotkeys on my computer because essentially I'm pulling the hotkeys up here on the screen. I can quickly grab this. What is this, exposure? And now with the MX Creative Console, I can quickly adjust the exposure. It's so great. Dial that up because a lot of you complained that I made this film too dark. So we'll do that. There we go. How's that, everyone? Does that suit what we wanted? That's for the people who are saying this is too dark. I'll remind you too that if a project is too dark, it may be your monitor. You can turn up the brightness. Genuinely, I've just never gone back to an Apple mouse the second I used the MX Master 3, and now I'm on the 4, which now has that action ring. It's even better. When you open up Logitech Options Plus, you'll see they have all of these pieces of software natively built right into their hub here. So you can come in and quickly, if I want to change anything on here, let's come to Premiere, let's add, we want to do add edit, I think it is, add edit. There we go, I can drag that right on to there. And now, right now, boom. I'm gonna scroll over, boom. Boom, add another edit. Batteries last on these so long. What's great is there's a little button on the bottom that allows me to switch between the computers. So when I come to my laptop or over on my iMac or I go home, I can travel with this and just hit the button and it instantly grabs to that computer that I have set. So thank you Logitech for sponsoring this video. So if you want to check out their hardware, and there's a link down below. Big fan of what they're doing. And I don't really do many hardware sponsorships on this channel, but they're a company that is leaning in to the creative space and helping creatives like us work faster. Great. Story questions. How much of the footage was planned versus captured in the moment? About 80% of this was planned. Was the framing and the exact locations of the moment? Yeah, that would be it. But the scenes, the actual action of, we want someone on one of the machines, we want to be in the back of the truck, we want to have a dinner, we want to be by the sink. If you go watch some of the other videos I've either released or will be releasing, I break that all down and show you all the shot lists and what I've done there. But this was a job where I was getting married in a week and a half after shooting it, and I had to edit it myself. I didn't want to have a ton of footage. So in the end, I think I only shot under 90 minutes of footage across the 2 days, which still sounds a lot, but that's because I'm hitting record and letting the action play out for a while. The thing I wanted to do is I wanted to come back with just 10 shots, but that didn't happen. Question here from Colin Thomas. Dock-wise, does this tool excel and why? Why pass on it for bigger cameras for documentaries? Yes, I kind of shot a documentary in this, but being that the interface right now for audio and time code, and unless they give you the time code in on the USB-C, it's not a good dock camera. You need a top handle with good XLR, and when they release that, then maybe I'll say that. But until then, I wouldn't recommend this for documentary, because I think the biggest mistake people make with documentaries is they don't have individual labs on their characters, they don't embrace real-time scenes, and they don't embrace what people are saying in the moment. They just go shoot random moments of beautiful B-roll, kind of like I did for Labor and Love, this film. So in that context, in that hybrid doc commercial space, this is great. But for a true documentary camera where you're gonna be sitting down and you don't have external audio, I just like keeping all my audio on the camera. It's easier in the edit, it's easier for my editors, and it's better for me to manage, and I can be monitoring it right into the camera. And that wasn't really viable on this camera. Everyone gets so excited about the 32-bit float on this. 32-bit float audio is it's only as good as the mic you use. A couple of you asked if I used the image stabilization. No, didn't really look too much into that. I was shooting all tripod, so it didn't really make sense to have that. Oh, wait, hold the presses. I lied. I definitely used image stabilization on this project. It was very impressive. It was only really for these shots when I was shooting out of the back of the truck. With the camera there were some vibrations and I had the tripod there. But I took the stabilization off most of the time because I really was just shooting on tripod. This whole thing was tripod, except for these shots in the car. I used my Delkin, I'm terrible with names, It's here. I'll put the logo for it and the link to the bottom. It's like a $50 3 mounting point suction rig. I love them. And the hack to make your footage so stable, that's why I was able to get these really stable shots in this pickup truck on these rough roads, is I put 2 of them. So 6 mounting points in total. Now the frustration with the Nikon is it doesn't have multiple mounting points, but I got around that because I was using cinema lenses. So there is a thread underneath the lens. So I attached 2 of these suction mounts, would stick them on the car, and then I put the second one underneath the lens. And this is because if I had just been on the body, the lens would have weighed it down and I would have gotten this vibration. But because I have it supporting the lens and the body, these shots were perfectly smooth, and I was very happy because those were my favorite shots of the film. Now, a couple other quick questions. This was my favorite one I got, which was, should I go with the FX6 or FX9? We're talking about the Nikon ZR here, so neither. But honestly, if you were pushing me, absolutely the FX6. The FX9 has a slower processor and it crops when you go to slow motion. There's no question. FX6 all day. Another question I got from Lander Capiz. How do you expose your clips? It's like the Nikon camera doesn't have a display for exposure. Well, the Sony does. I definitely had a waveform up the entire time, so that's how I expose it. But I also ran the camera with a small HD, so I'm always checking the false colors. This is why I love external monitors. People ask me why I go through the hassle to have one and the extra batteries. I love a big screen. Check it with my LUT, check it with the false colors. It's the best way for me to nail my exposure, even though a lot of people thought I underexposed this project. I just like my footage darker. Sometimes you can just eyeball it, but you gotta look at the waveform, and the Nikon's really cool because it can do a small waveform or a big one, which in my opinion is actually a lot more handy than the Sony cameras. And last bonus question here, I actually appreciated this one, which was, what are your top 3 favorite things about the ZR in comparison to the Sonys? I would say the screen. No, definitely the screen. It's way better than my FX3 screen, which I'm shooting on right here. The next thing I would say is the codecs, having ProRes RAW. I don't use R3D that much. If I was using my Nikon on a commercial, I absolutely would. But of course, the raw R3D files take up a lot more space, but that is a consideration when you're getting that much more data. And with that extra data, you allegedly get some more dynamic range. Didn't test it out because I do find R3D is kind of cumbersome. You have to go through Redson EX and a whole bunch of other software. I like simple workflows. And the final thing I love about it compared to my Sony, honestly, it's just the screen and the codec. To be honest, still the FX3 has a much better camera body for professional workflows, in my opinion, but the Nikon has beautiful color, beautiful codecs, and a lovely screen. I almost forgot. All right, back to Studio Mark. Does this camera have open gate? No. Should you care? I think it's a little overrated. It's great if you're shooting anamorphic. It's a nice flex if you're trying to shoot both 16:9 and 9:16, but didn't have it. I didn't really care for it. Can you check your phone as a monitor or check for false color? I didn't do that, just use a small HD. I'm sure you could at some point. I've never used my phone as a monitor. I like to use it as a phone. Beautiful, what music was this? Well, let's hop back in here. This was Boom 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 from Music Bed, and it was Held by Hannah Parrott? It's a beautiful song. This is where I always go for my inspiration. I was kind of struggling with the images for the film, so I just create playlists and then I go running with those playlists from Music Bed, and then I allow the images to kind of be inspired. And that's when partway through this, I just was like, hey, I should reach out to my friends down in Wisconsin. I know they have a farm and some really cool kids. And then I got on the call with them, and the rest is kind of, that's how the story began to build. But the thing you do when you want to find a good story isn't just beautiful images and beautiful context. You need to find the tension. What are the people navigating? And the dad and the mom there, Ben and Megan, amazing people. The tension that they're struggling with is how much responsibility is too much responsibility for our children. They want them to be confident. They're navigating that. And that's what they were expressing, is life moves slower when you allow your kids to do more and help out more, but it makes them more confident, makes them more interesting people. And those kids were just, they're beautiful kids. They would ask me questions and be engaged and wanted to know so much about Canada. And they never once asked for an iPad or a movie. Felt like I was back in the 90s. It was beautiful, and it was really why I wanted to make that film. Got a few questions here off of Instagram I'm going to pop in. Here's one by Tommy Fiverings. Can you see this camera being a hit or miss? Big question. I think it's a hit. I think it's both things. I think in the timeline, absolute hit. Love what I'm seeing. In the field, bit of a miss, as I've mentioned. There's some things that Nikon, I think, will improve upon for future cameras that are going to be in a higher price bracket. This one right now is kind of going for that middle range, going after these cameras. But for me, it's a hit in terms of shooting film, like shooting a project that I really care about the image quality. And so, yeah, I'm a big fan of this. A bunch of you were asking about the sensor flicker. As you can see, we're in the shadows here. We'll even zoom back out. We'll look at this shot. This was color corrected. Nick never mentioned anything from this. Nick Pleca did the final color correction on this for me. You can see he did a little sky replacement there. He added those clouds back in. But this shot, we're not getting any flickering in those shadows, and we'll zoom in here. There's no flickering. There you'll get a little bit of noise in some of these areas, but no flickering in the shadows. Oh, I love that frame. Might get that printed. Question for the video: did the camera overheat at all? What conditions did you use it? I was out for 2 days in about 30 to 32 Celsius, whatever that is in Fahrenheit, direct sunlight, and I shot all day. And as I mentioned, I was shooting ProRes, and this thing never overheated. It was never hot to touch. I never saw any warnings on it. I'd never even thought about it being warm. The big part that was warm was my friggin' small HD monitor. Touching those will scald you. You sometimes feel like you need oven mitts just to handle the small HD, or especially a Teradek. I was talking with Gerald. There's no issues with the overheating that I've experienced. Maybe you have. Comment below and let me know. Next question: how long does the battery last? Does it overheat? We've answered that. No. And the battery lasted for me, it was at least 2 hours. It felt longer than the FX3. I would barely be changing batteries. I kept looking at it and I kept mistrusting the readout because it was such a new camera. I was like, it can't be that long. These can't be going that far. What was really frustrating is they didn't give me a battery charger, like an external one, so I had to charge it off the camera. So I was doing that at night, but they charged fairly quickly, and honestly, I would never have to recharge them through the day. 3 batteries lasted me the entire shoot, so very impressive on the battery. A lot of people asking if I shot SSD. No, they don't do external USB recording on this. You can go off the HDMI, but I don't know why you would, but the codecs are so good. I don't think you need to really be worrying about external shooting on this. You just have to have enough memory cards. What is best to use, NRAW or ProRes? Again, for me, it's always just ProRes. Simplicity for workflow. I don't like to overthink things. I don't like to complicate it. And so ProRes really is just that. So thank you guys for making it this far. If you made it this far, let me know what character you use in GoldenEye. And if you didn't play GoldenEye, tell me what favorite James Bond movie you like. And if you didn't do that, regardless, just leave the video game emoji. Let me know. Go Blue Jays. By the time this is played, I don't know how they've done in playoffs. I think I should end the video now. My editors had to go through enough footage.